When you think about the most hated chefs on Hell's Kitchen, there are three names that instantly pop up: Jason Underwood, Frank Calla, and of course, Raj Branston. While Jason was hated for his sexist remarks, it was the dim-wittedness when it came to Frank. As for Raj, he was hated simply for being Raj. But hey, those weren't the only notorious ones, because this contestant too joined the infamous list when he drew a lot of flack for warming up to another contestant. I think warming up is an understatement. Just take a look at what happened.
Water. Sorry. My name's Quiz.
So, just to be clear, this isn't a clip from Big Brother, okay? These two contestants snuggled up right in the middle of the 7th episode of season 16. Well, I don't have anything against chefs finding love on the show. I mean, that'd be pretty cool. The issue here was that the dude, Andrew Pierce, was keeping a very important aspect of his life secret. Heather was totally into him, and she even thought he was the most genuine person she'd ever met. And this clip you just saw would have gone down as one of the cute moments on the show. If only Andrew wasn't engaged. This dude was actually cheating on his fiancée on a show which he very well knew would air someday. It's interesting how, despite having Heather's mind and heart, Andrew only considered her to be a friend. Wait, then what was this all about?
Push these things down. Can we take the bra?
Who even talks to a friend like that? The bloody womanizer was taking advantage of someone who had no idea he was engaged. Like, hello, did someone teach you boundaries? Wonder how this fiancé felt about the whole situation. I can tell you, it was pretty messed up. And guess who took the slack for it? Heather. The poor girl was not only blamed, but villainized for causing a rift between a committed couple. Oh, yeah, totally, why not? But later, after the show in a podcast, Heather came out clean when she confirmed this.
I had no idea at all that he was engaged while we were on the show.
As for Andrew, he certainly wasn't oblivious of the consequences. I have no idea what he was thinking when he pushed another woman to make out with him on national television while being engaged. Even if it was a joke, it was in bad taste. For those who aren't aware of what happened next, here's the update.
His engagement ended, so he was single.
Yeah.
And supposedly seeking me out.
And then came another twist in this rom-com. After Heather did some digging, she found out that Andrew was seeing another woman as well. I mean, bravo, dude, way to go. Not just that, Andrew also forgot to mention one tiny detail.
Everybody went to bed. It was like 3:30 in the morning. And him and I were sitting there going over my entire menu, front to back, in and out. And he wanted to know it the way I did. So, like, I respected him for that, but I still hated him at the time.
Gosh, thankfully Heather dodged a bullet. I mean, this guy was a walking red flag. And yes, we should move on. It's been years, but it's never a bad time to remember that cheating should never be normalized. Who knows? Maybe you'd end up giving your partner emotional trauma and insecurities that might last a lifetime. Anyway, going by the latest updates, Andrew seems to have evolved and is often seen having a good time with his kids. I hope he's left his Playboy days behind. I mean, I'm sure nobody was prepared to see two chefs getting that physical on the show. Speaking of which, this next chef took things to the next level when he literally got physical with none other than Gordon. Almost. Any guesses? Well, those who committed this horrendous mistake can speak for themselves. I think you know who I'm talking about.
Shit, dog. I ain't here for that. You want a fucking jacket? You want to talk some shit? Let's go step outside, mother.
Whether you're a die-hard fan of Hell's Kitchen or not, I'm sure you've heard of Joseph Tinley. I mean, this guy who seemed to be a decent enough cook stirred things up when he went head-to-head with Gordon in season 6. But is that the only reason to hate him? Of course not. Joseph was extremely quick to get aggravated over basically nothing. And I think Gordon sort of knew about it, because just take a look at how he didn't even flinch when the mighty Joe got right up into his face.
You want to get do you think?
Not one twitch of a muscle. I guess Joseph thought he could intimidate the hell out of Gordon and eventually have his way. But bro, don't forget, you're dealing with someone who was raised in a pretty rough neighborhood that taught him an important lesson. You've got to toughen up to survive, which is why these kind of sly threats, or should I say empty threats, leave Gordon unfazed. Not sure if Joseph knew, but the multi-Michelin star chef was a professional footballer back in the day, and currently is a multi-Dan black belt. Not to mention, Gordon stands 6 foot 2 inches tall and quite solidly built, even at his age. Safe to say, Joseph didn't choose his opponent well. Honestly, if he wanted to, I bet he could have taken Joe down in a second. The security there, if they had any real purpose, was probably just to make sure Joe didn't end up in the emergency room. But if you ask me, I think Joseph was always cocky. During the signature dish challenge, Gordon made an exciting announcement that for the first time, the challenge would be a team competition, with each contestant going head-to-head. Joseph was the third person to have his dish judged by Chef Ramsay, and his opponent was Tanil. When he presented his dish, a roasted veal chop with perfectly cooked meat, sadly, the Brussels sprouts failed to hit the mark. When Gordon politely asked him to taste the sprout, Joseph's defensive instincts kicked in. I mean, how dare Gordon suggest he use his bare hands like he was some kind of savage? No, Joseph needed a fork because he was far too refined to eat with his hands, like the rest of us mere mortals. But wait, it doesn't end there. Joseph decided to declare war on the star chef.
Like a caveman, do I eat with my fucking hands?
That's only because what better way to handle criticism than to challenge the renowned chef to a parking lot brawl, right? Such grace and maturity, I say. Despite his charming personality, Joseph and his teammates managed to secure a win in the challenge with a score of 3-2. Hooray for them, but Joe had already made an entry into Gordon's blacklist. During the dinner service, he decided to raise a toast, not to celebrate his team's achievement or express gratitude, but to this.
Cheers. The women clean where they should be at. Cheers.
Heard that snarky little comment? Yes, Joseph toasted to the women on the red team, suggesting they were right where they should be. How progressive was this guy? The next morning when Gordon was explaining the challenge, Joseph was back to being himself.
Shrimp is not a difficult challenge. Nothing more than a regular entry-level cook can do.
Aw, now don't be so humble, Joseph. We know what you are. The challenge, as you may remember, was to clean shrimps to meet Gordon's extracting standards. During the challenge, Joseph took it upon himself to glance over at the red team, and of course, couldn't resist making a condescending remark. He declared that they looked confused, as if he had all the answers. When it was his turn to have his shrimps judged by Gordon, the result was far from impressive. The star chef deemed his performance disappointing, as Joseph only managed to clean a measly 5 shrimps correctly. So much for all the attitude, huh? However, despite Joseph's lackluster performance, his team managed to secure a narrow victory with a score of 45-44, and were treated to lunch at Newport Beach. But leave it to Joseph to put a damper on the celebration. During this special reward, he managed to disrespect Gordon in a truly admirable display of arrogance. He boldly declared that he wasn't learning anything from Gordon, dismissing his mentor's wisdom as meaningless.
What am I learning by shooting shit? Nothing. What gets accomplished by running your mouth?
Yes, please enlighten us, Joseph. Even when Dave tried to calm him down and bring some situation, Joseph persisted in his dismissive attitude, stating that it was nice to get out, but he simply didn't care. As the blue team enjoyed their time on the yacht, basking in the joy and camaraderie, Joseph stood out like a sore thumb. And true to his character, he showed how ungrateful and arrogant he was in his exit interview.
I don't need some limey fucking prick.
While I'm not sure what kind of mindset Joseph actually came with to the competition, here's someone who definitely knew her way around the kitchen. Well, at least sometimes. You see, Elise Harris had the ability to cook. There's no denying that. The problem was her inability to consistently deliver during the dinner service, which, by the way, landed her in the hot seat for elimination time and again. Now, what really made the whole situation worse was Elise's impeccable talent for handling stress. She had a remarkable knack for pointing fingers and placing blame on everyone but herself. It was truly a sight to behold. No matter the mistake or mishap, Elise had a masterful way of deflecting any responsibility and refusing to own up to her own shortcomings. It's no wonder she didn't exactly win any popularity contest with her fellow contestants. In the very first episode of Season 9, as the dinner service kicked off, Elise found herself stationed on the appetizer station alongside Elizabeth Bianchi. Things started off on a rocky note when Gordon called out the first ticket. Instead of calmly responding, Elise decided to shout over him, much to his frustration. He wasn't having any of it and promptly berated her, ordering her to call out the ticket properly. Well, I think that put her in her place. A few moments later, she was not ready with her risotto when Carrie Keep sent her scallops, and when she did send them to the pass, it was too liquidy. Ew! I think this one's going down the drain. But Gordon made it worse. Gordon compared it to a rice pudding and schooled her about not caring for his standards. When Krupa Patel volunteered to help her, she wasn't convinced that she was better than herself, and that backfired real bad.
You're gonna have Krupa replace me? I'll kick Krupa's ass with a blindfold and a broken arm.
When Krupa delivered a perfect risotto, she was lost for words. Later, when she was watching Carrie delivering scallops, she talked down to her, saying that she should get her shit together. And when the latter was working on her third attempt, she jumped on the fish station uninvited and stole Carrie's job by declaring this.
Clearly, Carrie is a weaker cook than I am, so I felt like I wanted to take charge to impress Chef Ramsay.
But her plans for sabotage didn't go down well with Gordon. Returning for Hell's Kitchen All-Stars Season 17, 8 years after her initial run, Elise seemed to have learned a lesson or two. At least that's what I thought, but I was dead wrong. Elise made a grand villainous comeback, proving that old habits die hard, and arrogance just runs deep within her. She managed to feud with just about everyone on her team, but her primary targets were Michelle Tribble and Dana Cohen. Elise took her animosity to a whole new level by accusing them of conspiring against her, creating an alliance aptly named Deshelle. Oh, the creativity! In a desperate attempt to regain some control, Elise sought to form an alliance with her once enemy Jennifer Norman in a bid to take down the infamous Deshelle. But surprise, surprise, her scheming didn't quite work out as planned. Elise's dreams of a triumphant comeback were shattered, and she found herself packing her knives and leaving the competition in 7th place. She has often been labeled the most hated chef in Hell's Kitchen history, claiming her infamy as the villain. She branded herself the Diva, Deliciousness in Various Assortments chef, and said, "I'm still the same Elise who really doesn't care what people think." She also added, "It's okay, you can hate me." Wow, beat that now. At least she's self-aware. She seems to think that she's the queen of Hell's Kitchen. We might have missed the coronation, right guys? These days, Her Excellency is running her own business called The Diva Chef, where she's found a way to blend her fitness interests with her culinary skills. She married Chris Wims in 2017 at Potomac Pinot Winery, and now lives in Stafford with their kids. However, I would have loved to see Elise locking her horns with this next contestant. Now that would be a whole new ballgame. Termed as whiny and insufferable, Sabrina Brimhall from Season 8 seems to get a lot of hate. Gordon was already pissed at her before even tasting her signature dish. Do you remember this?
Sit down and rest your weary legs. Thank you, Baby Spice. You look very cozy there.
This happened because Sabrina was yawning and being disrespectful in the very first episode, so obviously Gordon had to humble her. In her defense, she was 22 when the show aired, and has evolved a lot since then. On her YouTube channel, she posted a video sharing how she struggled to deal with the hate both online and offline. As viewers noticed, and so did I, she was extremely hostile on the show. Every time she was nominated for elimination, she pretty much threw her teammates under the bus. She could often be seen crying and bitching about other contestants, and in Gordon's own words,
"Play, but I'm not looking for a drama queen. I'm looking for a head chef."
But if you believe Sabrina, she's been doing a lot of inner work.
I've really been able to focus on my healing, and I've gone through some really deep transformations. You know, those people in my life who know me, they know that like I'm not the same person anymore, you know.
Good for her, and I wish her all the very best. Meet Scott Hawley. Even a humiliating elimination couldn't change his arrogant attitude. Let's not mince words, okay? Scott was unlikable for most part of the show, and often treated the people around him awfully. And every time he makes a motivational speech in the confessional, the superhero music kicked in. It's pure comedy gold. I mean, you gotta give it to the producers. Totally love the irony. He is one of those people who believe they are the best, but simply can't back up their talking with their work. Rarely do you see someone whose confidence outstrips their talent by such a large amount. And no points for guessing. The internet hates him. There's a Reddit thread that starts by declaring him as ungodly cocky and condescending. What an intro he's earned, don't you think? If you watch Season 7, you know that the hate is somehow justified. First, he managed to get poor Mickey kicked out of the kitchen by coaxing him into bringing up raw halibut during the very first service. Way to go, Scott! And that's just the beginning of his impressive track record. In the second challenge, he nearly single-handedly jeopardized the blue team's chances by ruining Salvatore's eggs. Bravo, Scott, for showcasing your excellent skills. But wait, there's more.
So grainy.
Scott told me he was kind of running.
In the next disastrous move, Scott served a raw burger, leading the blue team to their first defeat. Who needs properly cooked food anyway, right?
I've got a raw burger here. Come here. Chef. Put your finger in there. Oh, come on.
And let's not forget his potato mishap during the dinner service. Oh, but don't worry, Scott couldn't just leave it at that. He decided to interfere with everyone else's stations. until Benjamin kindly told him to take a hike. Can't imagine why they wouldn't want his expertise, right?
Well, get the fuck out of here, please. Hey, dude, all right. Handle it then. Handle your shit.
Despite that, Scott, the master of consistency, continued his reign of chaos when he joined the red team. Suddenly, he thought it was a great idea to wear a ridiculous hat because, you know, that's a sure sign of sanity. And hey, did you notice how he conveniently started smoking out of the blue? Maybe he thought it would make him look cooler. Who knows? Now, let's talk about his brilliant strategy to sabotage the red team. He convinced Nilka to serve blood sausage with prunes, because nothing says a winning dish like that combination, right? And oh, he decided to make a sweet potato soup with Maria, garnished with ham hock, when, let me remind you, ham hock was supposed to be the star of the show. It's almost like he was trying to test the chef's patience, but surely that couldn't be the case, right? Scott also managed to serve fried chicken that looked like it had been cooked for 50 hours. Yeah, totally Hell's Kitchen material. What's more, he even left an oven door open, because who needs to worry about potential injuries, right? And of course, he continued his streak of sabotage by serving yet another awful dish in another challenge, and conveniently blaming Nilka for stealing the good ingredients. Classic move right there, Scott. But the cherry on top was during his worst service yet. He forgot all the orders, blamed his teams for his own incompetence, then he served raw Wellingtons, burned the chicken and beef, and oh, he forgot to put the gratin on the beef as well. And what was his brilliant justification for all these mistakes? He actually thought the Wellingtons were good enough, despite knowing they were undercooked. Genius, I tell ya! Even after all the mess, he continued with his speeches. And honestly, even a failed politician could make better ones. Finally, Gordon, like all of us, had had enough. Well, at least he provided us with endless entertainment and a prime example of what not to do in the kitchen. Thanks for the laugh, Scott, but I can't help that you feature in my list of the most hated chefs on Hell's Kitchen. But who knows? There may be more contestants in the future who piss Gordon off by throwing a fit. Now, I know you enjoyed every minute of this video, so before you leave, make sure to smack that like button, subscribe, and turn on my post notifications. Also, something even crazier happened in this video right here, so don't forget to check it out now.